If you teach finance, StockCalc is a new platform that will help your students understand fundamental analysis. StockCalc contains standard models, including discounted cash flows, comparables, and adjusted book values, and the data on 8,000 North American stocks. StockCalc's power lies in the fact that you can load a company from the home page and it will build all the models for you. So you can use our models, or for your students, you can have them build the models individually. We'll take a look at a sample report that's been generated in StockCalc. I've loaded Johnson & Johnson. Here you can see in the top of the report close price as of the date, the weighted average valuation that we've generated, the different valuation models that were used, what the analysts are saying about this stock, and then the rest of the report goes into the details on how we actually generated the valuations. So you can see a snapshot of the different models that we've used and the valuations that have been generated by those models. A bit of an overview as well on the models here. Then some information on the company, and we get into the detail of the modeling. Here you can see the weighted average cost of capital, the assumptions that we've made there, what analyst consensus data we have available on the company. We forecasted the financials, income statements in this case. Use those income statement forecasts in the discounted cash flow model. You can see all the different components of the DCF model in here, the cash flow that we've used, tax rate, capex, tax shields, weighted average cost of capital to come up with a valuation for the company. We do some sensitivity analysis around a number of the components in the DCF as well. We look at the company from a comparable basis, so J&J against Amgen, Gilead, Pfizer, Merck, AbbVie, for example, using standard ratios, price to earnings, book sales, cash flow, EV/EBITDA, to come up with a valuation for the company that way. We also run a set of other ratios, and this is generally for companies that have no revenue or negative EBITDA, for example. So we look at some different components in a comparable basis to come up with a valuation for the company that way too. We value the company against itself. We refer to that as a multiples approach. So we're using the price to book, price to earnings, etc. to actually value the company against its historic ratios to see if it looks under or overvalued versus itself historically. And we look at its balance sheet, come up with an adjusted book value based on the balance sheet information. There's more detail in the report as well too. We look at the company versus the industry that it's in using the standard ratios, and the balance of the report of the financial statements. Now the beauty of this is that when we ran the company from the home page, it's actually built the models for us. So here's the cost of capital. You can see all the different components are available, the beta, cost of equity, cost of debt, prefs if they're in the capital structure, and the WACC. And I can make changes in the WACC here, or I can actually make changes back in the components to come up with the differences that I'm seeing in something like the cost of capital. Same is true for the discounted cash flow model. We've built the model here. 149, we generated a 163 when we ran the model. We can play around with terminal growth rate, cash flows, tax rates, capex, tax shields, cost of capital to come up with different valuations. So your students can be looking at a lot of sensitivity analysis around the different pieces of the DCF, and they can do it very quickly here. There are a number of other models that get built as well too, so the comparables, you can see that we've actually built that as well. Students can adjust this, they can select or remove companies from the comparable basis. They can add companies that aren't even in the list if they want to do that as well too, and run the analysis that way to come up with the valuation. Same is true with the other models that we built, the multiples, liquidation, adjusted book values. They're all there, they're all available for the students to use, to learn from. Some other tools that are available within the site. We have a powerful stock screener. So I've actually loaded a series of dividend stocks here. We have a standard set of criteria that can be used. So beta between 0 and 1, close price at least 20, dividend yield 3% or higher, EPS growth rate at least 10% over 1 year. With that, we can generate a list of companies. We can actually save that list of companies to a portfolio as well. So I can actually show you if I go into the portfolio page. Here's a standard one that I keep, US large caps. So you can see the date purchased, number of shares, purchase price, etc. We can actually then run the valuation on that to come up with the valuations that we're getting for each of the stocks within that portfolio. So you could use that in a portfolio competition, for example, if the students were engaged in a stock market competition. They could be building their portfolios, looking at the valuations as part of the criteria that they're using to select the companies. You can do it very quickly with StockCalc as well too. StockCalc is also data rich. If I go back in to the research page, we have sector data on 140 industries. You can see the variety of ratios that we show here. So for example, if I wanted to see the historic price to earnings ratio for apparel manufacturing over the last 15 years approximately, I can see the trend, what I'm looking at for price to earnings ratio, or for any of the ratios that you see here across all of those industries. The nice thing about this is you can actually go directly into the database as well. So for example, I've opened up the valuation ratios table from the database, but you can see the variety that are in here: balance sheets, income statements, cash flows, historic price data, variety of ratio data, NAICS codes. And you can actually be opening two tables at the same time and join them and haul information out from both tables. So for example, if you wanted to open up a balance sheet and an income statement for a company, you can open them up on common fields such as date, symbol, and exchange, and pull the data out for them. So you can see here I've loaded the valuation ratios table. I've loaded a few different fields from it: price to earnings, price to book, etc. Where the symbol is equal to Microsoft, so I've built this query, and I can generate the results for this query. So here you can see some overview data, max, min, average, etc., and then the raw data itself, and I can export the raw data for use other ways as well too. And sort the data obviously by date and so forth. One of the things that are really important to emphasize here is when we built StockCalc, we've built it in a very modular fashion. So for example, here I've pulled out just the DCF module. I'm in a separate browser window, and that's all I have available is the DCF module. So I've loaded Microsoft here, for example, and this is all I see when I open this up in the browser window separately. So for example, if there are just pieces of the site that you would like the students to see and not the site in its entirety, we can actually look at that as well too. If you wanted the comparables, the DCF, just a book value, those types of tools available, liquidation perhaps, then those tools are all available to be set up as a separate window. Take a little bit of background work to set them up for you, but they're all certainly available there. The site has a very strong API. We're actually used by Globe Investor every day. They're pulling our 8,000 reports each day through our API for their Globe Investor site. We're live on TD Ameritrade's site in the US as another example. So the data is being used by retail investors, financial advisors, analysts, so forth. So it sets up very well for your students as a way for them to understand fundamental valuation. So with that, please feel free to contact me. My name is Brian Donovan. I'm the president of StockCalc. We're based in Miramichi, New Brunswick, and here's our contact information. Thank you very much, and I look forward to working with you further.